James Parker had always prided himself on his sharp suits, polished shoes, and a title that carried weight: CEO of an up-and-coming tech firm called Ascend Innovations. At 45, James had built his career on ambition and drive, but not always on kindness. Though he saw himself as a man of principle, he rarely looked beyond surface impressions. That flaw, unnoticed by him, would set the stage for a life-changing moment. Meanwhile, Thomas Bennett was a quiet, hard-working man in his late 50s who spent most of his days cleaning floors, emptying trash bins, and ensuring every corner of the massive office building gleamed. Thomas wasn't the type to boast about his life or share stories about his past. To most, he was just the janitor. To Thomas, his work was his pride. It was a rainy Monday morning when James arrived at the office, rushing past the lobby without a second glance at Thomas, who was polishing the marble floors near the entrance. James barely acknowledged the man, muttering a quick, "Excuse me," as he hurried by. Thomas didn't mind. He was used to being overlooked. But as the day unfolded, things began to take a different turn. Around noon, James was in a foul mood. A major client had canceled a deal, and his investors were breathing down his neck. He stormed out of his office to grab a coffee when he noticed Thomas wiping a window near the break room. James frowned. "Why are you still here?" he barked. Thomas paused, looking confused. "Just finishing my rounds, sir." "Well, hurry it up. You're in the way," James snapped, his voice sharp enough to cut through the room. Thomas quietly nodded and moved aside, his expression calm but weary. The next day, James arrived earlier than usual, eager to prepare for a meeting. As he walked into the lobby, he noticed Thomas talking to another janitor. They were laughing softly, and for some reason, the sight irritated him. "Do you people not have enough work to do?" James called out, his tone laced with impatience. Thomas looked up, his smile fading. "Just taking a quick moment to help him with the new cleaning supplies, sir." James's face tightened. "Well, I don't pay you to chat. Focus on your job, or I'll find someone who will." The words hung in the air, heavy and stinging. A younger version of Thomas might have argued, but now he simply nodded, his dignity intact. Later that week, an incident pushed things to a breaking point. A small spill in the conference room hadn't been cleaned quickly enough for James's liking. When he saw Thomas walking by, he lost his temper. "Thomas, get in here," James shouted. Thomas stepped inside, calm as always. "Yes, Mr. Parker?" James pointed at the spill. "Do you see this mess? This is unacceptable. I've had enough of your laziness." Thomas opened his mouth to respond, but James cut him off. "You're fired. Collect your things and leave by the end of the day." That afternoon, James was in his office when his assistant knocked. "Mr. Parker, there's someone here to see you," she said hesitantly. "Who?" "It's Mr. Bennett," she replied. James frowned. "I told him to leave. Why is he still here?" "He says it's important," she said, her tone almost nervous. Sighing heavily, James gestured for her to send him in. When Thomas entered, he wasn't holding a mop or wearing his usual uniform. Instead, he had on a crisp suit and carried a leather briefcase. James blinked, momentarily stunned. "What is this?" James asked, leaning back in his chair. Thomas smiled faintly. "I thought it was time we had a proper conversation." "About what?" "The building," Thomas said calmly. James tilted his head. "What are you talking about?" Thomas set the briefcase down and opened it, pulling out a thick stack of papers. "I own this building, Mr. Parker." James's jaw dropped. "This building belonged to my family for decades. When my father passed, he left it to me," Thomas explained. "I've always been more hands-on, which is why I like to take care of it myself. You might call it unusual, but I call it personal pride." James was speechless, the weight of his actions hitting him all at once. Thomas continued, his voice steady. "I've seen how you treat people, Mr. Parker. Not just me, but others as well. You judge by appearances and assume your position gives you the right to look down on those around you. That's not leadership." James felt a lump in his throat. He tried to speak, but no words came out. "I could ask you to leave the building today," Thomas said, "but I'm not that kind of man. Instead, I want you to think about how you treat others. The janitors, the assistants, the interns, they're all part of what makes this company work. Without them, there's no you. James nodded slowly, his face pale. I'm sorry, Mr. I didn't know. Thomas's smile returned warmer this time. Now you do. From that day forward, James Parker was a different man. He greeted Thomas by name every morning, offering a handshake and a genuine smile. He made an effort to learn the names of every employee, from the receptionist to the delivery staff. Thomas continued his work around the building, not for the paycheck, but for the satisfaction of seeing the place thrive. And that's the story, guys. I hope you enjoyed this journey as much as I did in creating it. If you did, please don't forget to subscribe to our channel and hit that bell icon so you never miss a new adventure. And if you really loved it, share this story with your friends and family. Let's spread the word together. Thank you for watching, and until next time, keep dreaming, keep believing, and keep exploring. Hope to see you soon. Bye.